although I didn't type the words "the end" on the book I've been writing about my life story, I have come to the end. There's a lot of little finagling work I can do earlier on. There are things that can be changed. I haven't shown it to anybody except to Anne. But the feeling of coming to the end of your story, of your life story, is very powerful. To put it in perspective, to leave it for, that's a good question, whoever, there's a real temptation on my part to put it on the shelf or leave it in the computer. There's a part of me that feels leave it for the grandkids. And then there's some push to share it with both people I love and care about, and then maybe with people who don't have a clue to who I am or what my life is about. Forgive me if I've said all this before, but the injunction that has been driving my life all these decades follows from, as you probably all know well, the LSD trip of the 1960s, where I thought dead, and if anything, done. And then I was back again. And I was back, born back into a body that I watched reconceptualize itself as fingers and air and furniture and walls and carpet, just all kind of reassembled. And as I have explained many times, I found myself roaring with laughter. I had no idea why I was back in the world. I was so finished. And the voice in myself said, why? Why am I back? And the voice that responded, which was very strong and very loud and very direct, it said, to tell people what you saw. And I have spent the rest of my life doing that in movies, teaching, even photographs in a way. But it wasn't satisfied. And it basically said, nope, tell your story. And I started to tell my story to Joe Madry, a student and friend in Los Angeles, and he recorded it and typed it up and created a book. And I was not the first filmmaker he had done that with, so he knew what he was doing. And I read it, and I went, I don't know where the ending is. I don't know the ending of this book. And I wanted the ending to be enlightenment. That's a good ending for a book, where you tell the world the final truth of your journey. And that's, wow, great story. But I hadn't been feeling that exactly. The movie career, of course, has a story to it, which is kind of interesting, full of name dropping, if you will. The spiritual journey has a kind of a remarkable tale to it. And then the personal life, which I think was the thing that was missing. And when Paul Cronin, who's a professor at Columbia, came and said, where's your dad in all this? And I didn't have an answer for that. I realized I had a more personal story to tell, and immediately, suddenly, all of my cousins were appearing, and all of my aunts and uncles and grandparents. And, it became really interesting to me to go back into their stories. And then, of course, I imagined immediately, who cares about my grandparents and my cousins? And I remember vividly when I was making the movie My Life, and I had a lot of my family in the audience as part of the church services and the parties and the things that were happening. And everybody came to be part of it and to get on screen. Richard Chu, the editor, was going, we got to cut this thing out here. I said, you can't cut that out. It's my cousin Wendy. You can't cut cousin Wendy out of the movie. And he said, but it's not working. I said, it's working. My cousin Wendy stays in the movie. And now I'm having the same issue. What do I do with my cousin Wendy, Betsy, Margie, at least, I mean, I go on and on, Marl. I mean, there's so many cousins, and they all have a role to play, and they are the fabric and they are the tapestry of my life. And I've written them now as like with my dad and my mom and everybody else. And there's a question of who cares about these people? I do. I think they all have a role to play. I think my grandchildren will find a lot of interest in knowing who these people were, but does anybody else care? And I'm a screenwriter, so I know you got to care about the characters. If you don't care about the characters in the first few minutes of a movie, you don't invest in the movie. So I'm kind of lost in a way about the magnitude of the story and who I'm writing it for. Is it my grandchildren? Is it my students and my friends? Is it my family? Is it the people who want to know about, the Hollywood gossip of a life? And my brother-in-law was here the other day, and he said I should watch this movie called Spielberg on HBO, which I recommend, by the way, to everybody. The whole beginning of the movie is all these people that I know and knew and had relationships with. Not to drop names, but Scorsese and De Palma, were a big part of the opening of the film. And then there's Spielberg himself, and people I came to know later a little bit, Coppola and George Lucas. And I at one point was invited into that group to be part of that group, but I had discovered my spiritual life and Rudi and the practice and all of that stuff, and I didn't feel right. And Brian De Palma and I had been friends, and Brian and I had gone out to lunch when I was at the Whitney Museum. I was a curator at the film, and we were out to lunch in Central Park with like a picnic. And I went to sit on the grass, and Brian would not sit on the grass. He would only sit on benches or rocks, but nothing growing underneath him. And now he was writing me from the beaches of Malibu saying, come on out, you got to be part of this this group of whatever we were called, or they were called, brats. And so this movie, the Spielberg movie, documented all these people. And I just started watching it the other night, and I thought, what might have been, could have been, should have been, I don't know. Would I have gone, would it have been better to go in that direction? My answer personally, no, it would not have been, because they were all directors and I was a writer. Directors can make 2 or 3 movies a year, maybe. A writer, lucky to finish a script in a year. You are not as productive. You're in a different universe. It's a different world. So nothing in me felt seeing Brian walking down the beaches and with his shoes off, which I couldn't imagine. So Brian was probably in shoes and socks and everything on the beaches of Malibu, and I was not part of that universe. And so I lived a different life. And in the end, I watched the magnitude of those lives. And in the worldly sense, the Spielbergs, the De Palmas, the Scorseses, on, Lucas, Coppola, they are the giants. They are the royalty of a film business. It's very strange to me that I started out as a friend with Marty Scorsese, but he was brilliant from day one. He was a filmmaker, genius beyond understanding from day one. That I would even be in the same business as him is amazing. That I would win an Oscar before Marty, it was not possible. And yet, the night of the Oscars, he was there with Goodfellas, I was there with Ghost, and Kevin Costner was there with Dances with Wolves, and I came away with the Oscar. The only reason I came away with the Oscar is that I had not gone to Hollywood to be walking up the beach with those guys, because I was not that. I was not that group. I needed to do the thing I talk about in teach in this class, which is go in, find out what needs to be said, and find a voice that says it. Tell people what you saw. I had to wait into my mid-40s before that voice matured, before I had an opportunity to go to Hollywood. I think you all know this story, but when my film Brainstorm opened, we saw Brian out there, Brian De Palma, and he said, Bruce, if you want this career, you got to move to Hollywood. Blanche was with me. We went back to DeKalb, Illinois, the cornfields in the middle of America, where Blanche was teaching. And Blanche said, we're moving to Hollywood. Something I would have been totally traumatized about, and was traumatized about. But she said, we're doing it. And she put her house on the market. And we made the move that made the physical manifested part of my life happen. But we had also taken the years away from the physical manifested world, in a sense, to do the meditative life. And that meditative life was the instructions that I needed to find the voice that knew what to say to the world. The work that goes into making a life, the outer and the inner, is so remarkable. How does it all come together? What choices do you make? How do you make right choices? How do you make wrong choices? How do you turn the wrong choices into right ones? And how do the right choices fall away? In all the years of meditation and spiritual work, the thing that came to me more than anything after extraordinary metaphysical journeys is, as I've said here repeatedly now, I don't know anything. I don't know. And when I realized that I don't know anything, I suddenly said, oh, that's the ending of my book. I don't have to be enlightened. I don't have to tell everybody the truth of the world. I have an ending. I don't know. And I come to I don't know, having known a lot, having experienced a lot, having had enormous adventures in the world of movies, in the world of spiritual journeying, in parenting, in having a life with friends and wonderful people, teaching, all of that stuff. And I come down to everything I've said in the last months, year of my teaching, is that a spiritual life gives you something to reference. It allows you to look deep into your soul and not just into the miasma of the world around us. It allows you for some clarity. But what it really teaches more than anything else is how massive, how alive, how dynamic, how mystical, how unbelievably incomprehensible this is. And anybody who says they know what it is and wants to put it in a book, it may sell 1 million copies. Do not believe it for a minute, or believe the parts that speak to you. But if you're looking for the grand answer from anything at all, simplify it. Get it down to the simple part. Because the grand answer is, this is the truth, is going to get you in trouble. And I knew I couldn't ever find the truth to put in my book. Except that it's too big, it's too wondrous, it's too beautiful, it's too scary, it's too horrifying, it's too beyond comprehension to tell you what it is. I know a lot of teachers appeal to a lot of students, and in fact make a lot of money appealing to a lot of students selling their books, that they have the answer. And some people can really sit down and go, I got it. I found it. It's right here, page 14, the line 18. This is the truth. And you go, great, But then I have, Daniel Subkoff saying the moment he slammed his thumb in the car door of a taxi as he was closing it, all of his 12 years of Buddhist practice went out the window. I've got to tell you, knowing the answer and slamming your hand in a car door are two very counterintuitive experiences. You know everything until suddenly everything is too painful and too blind and too unbelievable ego-minded, self-bodily contained to have any wisdom at all. All you know is, yeah, ouch, yikes, and it falls away. Coming back to not knowing in a kind of cosmically blessed way is an incredible opportunity to make peace with the unknown, to make peace with the largeness of all of this. And making peace does not mean holding on to the best part and letting go of the worst part, because it's a totality. And you can't let go of the worst if you think you can just hold on to the best, because you're not facing the totality. Life is good and bad, beautiful and ugly, painful and joyous, pleasurable. It's all of the above. And if you want a philosophy that embraces all of that, I repeatedly will give you the philosophy, which is, who knows? It just is. But I will tell you, there is a difference between being cerebrally caught in all of this and getting your answers from your mind and the books and the teachings and all the stuff that's made manifest in the world, and going deep inside and getting answers that have no words at all. And if it comes up in words, those words are a temporary placeholder to kind of help you understand a little bit about how to navigate the outer world. But the real words are not there. There's this other thing. And if you begin a life of meditation and you begin the journey inward through your third eye and through your throat and through your heart and your gut and your sex and your base of your spine and the top of your head, if you go in to these spaces and they are bigger than anything you can possibly understand, measuring it in terms of earthly dimensions, it's something much bigger. Words do not at all express it. Words are good. Writing a story of your life is a story. It's good. But the only value of it, for me, is teaching you to go in and find the balance and the harmony of the vastness of the ocean of which you are a wave. The wave is great. Sparkles, it crashes on the floor, it goes up, it goes down, it swims, it does all these things, but it is actually an expression of an oceanic silence. So big, so deep, so powerful, so unspoken, so eternal, if you will. And it finds these expressions in the manifested world of which you are one. And your story is loved by this big thing. It's loved by it. Trust me. Your story is worth living. It's worth everything. But its probable core element is remember who you are. Remember where you come from. Don't get lost in the magnitude of expression. Find the thing that is expressing. Find the thing that is creating, that is making you happen. And yes, you can get lost. And you can be totally part of the manifested world, but its duration is limited. It's called impermanent. It's impermanent. And if you have spent your whole life looking at the manifested thing as it starts to decay, which it will, either it decays or you will, and you start to get to a point where it's both painful and inexpressibly confusing, and you go through that, it's a really hard transition to go into the inevitability of returning to source, whatever that source may be, the ocean, infinity, eternity, whatever that may be. So the wise man tries to prepare for the only inevitable thing there is, which is leaving it all behind. And the only way you prepare for that really is getting a sense of that wordless, unspeakable, unknowable vastness that is very likely, no certainty here, but very likely where we go. Here's the good thing. Even if I'm wrong, and even if we return to blackout, nothing over, finished nothingness, big deal. That's what you do. But if you go back to source And it is as vast and as magnificent and as horrifying and as beautiful and as absolute as you can imagine. And nothing in you is ready for that journey. How does your story end? How does your story end? I'll tell you how it ends. It ends like, ah, the end. What's that? If I'm writing a Hollywood movie and that is the end, nobody's going to want to watch it. It's going to be pretty disturbing. And we all lean toward something more. A really good story takes you in and takes you out. It gives you an idea of the world, and it gives you an idea of yourself. It touches you. It goes into a penetrating space where you are with the movie and you are with yourself. And, I talk about this in the book, but if you're like me and you are watching a movie with your mom in a movie theater and it's scaring you to death, and you're just like this, and she leans over to you and she says, as my mother did to me, honey, it's only a movie. That is really a valuable piece of information. And if you can find that without your mom and just go deep inside and start to see the projector putting this on the screen and pulling back and relaxing and going, okay, it changes the nature of the movie a bit, but it doesn't take you out of it completely. But it does make you look at life differently. It gives you a certain release from the drama of it, from the distraction of it. So going deep inside is a practice that certain people find. There are religious practices like prayer and beliefs and hopes and things like that that give you a little bit of a click that goes, oh, it's going to be fine down the road. Oh, it'll be fine. Everything's going to be beautiful. I'm going to go to heaven. I'm going to have a lovely life. I'll see all my family and friends again. Everything will be fine. Da-da-da-da. Meanwhile, you're having a life full of anger and hostility and drama and no money, and this is happening. What do you do next? And it's all like, it'll be fine down the road. It'll be fine down the road. Maybe true. Maybe true. And I'm not in any way going to deny its truth. But I think for a lot of people who have their hope and their ambition, you get to the end of the road and it's like, ah! Where's your hope and your everything then? You're totally unprepared for inevitability. The idea is, if you can wake up now, get to work. What does it mean to get to work? It means open up, quiet your mind, quiet your heart, quiet everything in you, and just observe the thing that is watching and living this life. And it's really interesting because it's only watching a movie. I'm practicing this thing because I have this diabetic neuropathy, which is terrible pain, mostly in the middle of the night when I have nothing else to look at. And I've been trying this thing, which is just watch it as a movie. And I will tell you, for a couple hours, I'm actually good at it. Then it wears me down. It's a lot, it's work. It's really hard, but it really does work. And it really does help. When you start to look at something as manifested as electrical shock like pain, and you just look at it. And in a little way, I'm kind of holding my mom's hand when I'm doing it, which is a nice feeling. And I just let this thing happen. And I go, you can do this. But it's called work. It doesn't just happen. You have to work it and you have to get good at it. And what I love about the practice that we all do, that Rudi labeled very clearly, work. This is work. Work means letting go of the attachment to the manifested world with all of its delusions and illusions and disappointments and hopes and ambitions and even egocentric, power. Letting go of all of that, asking, as Rudi said, for help, to surrender, to let go, and finding the ability to watch the thing that's happening. So I'm now writing a book, and it's done. Done. The feeling is extraordinary. I cannot explain it. I have done what I was told to do. I have told them what I saw. I wrote this full story of what I saw. I've ended it not with a conclusion that I know what it was about exactly or that I know anything, but I have a conclusion that knows I know enough to claim no knowledge, to claim no certainty, but I can claim that the ride has been deeply instructive, deeply unfolding, and uplifting in so many ways, and that I have what I would call an abiding, not always abiding, but mostly abiding gratitude. Because I get to see what an unbelievable life I've had, and then by extrapolation, what a wonderful life you've had, every one of you. And if you're not seeing it as a wonderful life, then I think you haven't stepped back and looked at it. You just haven't seen it or appreciated it. You're just in your life like that. And being in your life like that, kind of, it's okay, it's not good days, bad days. No. You haven't seen a flower bloom. You haven't seen a bird. You haven't seen the ocean. You haven't seen what it means to walk into the environment, to get drenched in rain, to get the feeling of sun. You haven't learned what it is to hug somebody. You haven't learned what it is to see a little baby. You've missed the boat. That's the biggest problem, that you miss the boat. But the boat isn't like something you can't get to. It's all around you. It's all around you. And that's what they keep saying in all of these mystical teachings. It's everywhere. And you are one with that. You are one with that. You are the witness and you are the thing itself. This is the non-dualistic idea. It's a wonderful idea. It's a really wonderful idea, but it's more than an idea. It is, I think, a kind of truth, but not one that penetrates through the brain. It is a full-bodied awareness that arises, and you go, try to articulate it. Well, you can see it. You can get very verbal, but trying to articulate it is not the same as being it, witnessing it, saying thank you for it. These are the keys. These are the key elements. And if you're missing out on that, you're missing out on the ride, and you're missing out on the biggest important part of it, which is it's temporary. It is very temporary, and it's going to come to an end. And when you're at my age, writing the end is not that far off. It's wonderful to put it in a book. And I had this strange feeling of the kind of, well, where's the real end? But clearly it's on its way. But as I talked about last week, the end of the book is only the end of something. And as I described in my talk before, there's still now in front of me this thing of put down the coffee at the end of breakfast, and then you go, now what? I don't have a book to write anymore. I don't have to go shopping necessarily. I may have to go for a walk for my back, but then the now what? Now what is a big, big question. And my sister Marcy and my brother-in-law Alan were here this last week. And we kept asking this question because we're all getting old. Now what? And the sweetest little things come up. Learn to play piano. I talked to the class years ago about me learning to sing, which is, it's better probably to play piano. But try to figure out a now what. And it doesn't have to be productive. You don't have to write a movie. You don't have to write a book. It's like, just find the thing. And if you have nothing else, let me just suggest this as a possibility. Sit still. And let me suggest this. Try sitting still for 5 minutes or 10. This is meditation. Sit still and don't pull out your iPhone. That's like the big test of all people in Western culture and maybe everywhere. You don't sit still and go like that. Because if you do that, you're going to miss the boat. You're going to be still caught totally in this thing. Stop, sit, stay. I taught that years ago. It's like a dog. Stop, sit, stay. Stopping is one thing, sitting is another, stay is another. It's really important. And find that place inside and then watch what arises. And the miracle of my recent life has been what arises. I have had a completely full house. I've had 2 dogs here this week, a little baby. I have my brother-in-law and my sister. This house has been completely full of people. And it has been like the fullness thereof. It is so beautiful and so wonderful. And now it's quiet. And I am going from fullness to quiet. And I am finding each one amazing and delicious. And so if you surrender to life, it will bring you stillness and activity, fullness and emptiness, presence and absence, additives and subtractives. It will bring you all of these things. And if you are attached to the additive and afraid of the subtractive, you're going to be in trouble, because at some point it's going to be much more subtractive than additive. The absence will be greater than the presence. Well, maybe not, arguable. But what there will be is a kind of place that is worth finding when you put your coffee cup down in the morning. It's just, yeah. It's actually work to get to that. It's actually work. It doesn't happen by itself, because what happens by itself is the phone comes up. So it's work. It's the thing that says, nope, phone down. Sit here. Okay. Ooh, there's birds. Ooh, squirrel just got rid of all the birds. Ooh, nothing happening. Really quiet. Okay. Feels good. Okay. Sit here. Okay. And then I have to go to the bathroom. Oh, then your day starts. You get up, you go to the bathroom, and you're engaged. You're moving your body, and you're back in the flow of life. But it's all one thing. It's all one beautiful orchestration. And if you take all of that stuff and you put it into a book and you write your life story, you start to put in all of the action, all of the detail. But there isn't just detail. There is a silence that was behind it. And if you can write the silence into it, if you can write the spiritual journey into it, your book gets a little bit more expansive and a little bit more real, you know. And then if you can find an ending that says, I don't know what the ending is, there's a certain spark maybe of honesty in that. And a certain spark of, okay. And it's not unsatisfying, you know. And if you want endings, I've written all these movies, and the probably the one to go to is Ghost, and Patrick Swayze is saying goodbye to Molly as a dead man, a ghost to a live person, and he says, I love you, I've always loved you. And she says ditto, which is the total reflection of what he used to say to her when he didn't know how to say I love you. And so you have it like, oh, it's kind of coming together. I like that. And then as he's walking off into the sunset, into the distance of the unknown, he says something. He says, it's amazing, Mom. The love inside, you take it with you. Now that's an ending. And if it's true, beautiful. If it's not true, sorry, guys, but it is a good ending for a movie. And it may well be the ending of our lives, and we will find out. But I will tell you, you have to get to the point where you have seen the totality of your life, where you've either written the book or in your own mind seen the whole story, said yes, and then you go, the end. Done. Then whatever happens, happens. Anyway, that's the story. I do want to say that somewhere deep inside me, the gratitude and the joy of having finished my story is an incredibly beautiful, wonderful thing. And all I have to bring to the table here with all of you in a weekly basis, assuming we continue this and you want to hear this over and over, is there's a lot of gratitude. And that gratitude has quality, it has density, it has plasticity. It's a thing to share. And if any of you can pick up on it, it will make your life sweeter, and you might find gratitude as well. Thank you. Questions? I don't know. I never know what questions you might have from that kind of a story, but if you have them, I'm happy to answer. You have to put a hand.
Bruce.
Yes.
Bruce.
Yes. Dale.
Big thank you. I don't know how else to put it. Especially for reminding me of that last wondrous line in Ghost. I have to, this afternoon, go to a gathering to remember my grandson, who chose to die 3 years ago. And there's a big party happening. And I'm going thinking, Jacob, that's his name, I'd much rather just stay here and keep sending you love and hoping and knowing that the love you took with you is going to support your mother and father and your brother this afternoon. So those words, I'm so grateful for them because they remind me that I'm not going in my strength. I don't feel very strong today, but I'm going, experiencing that love, and hopefully will take it with me.
Well, I know you well enough to know that you will not only take it with you, you'll bring it to everybody there. You have no idea what a pathway you are to love. And you will be able to share it with everybody. Those who haven't gone deep enough to find it coming through the self, the ether, they'll find it coming directly from you. Just the way you touch people, look in their eyes, the way you hug them, will bring that love to everybody. And, you know, of course, somewhere down the road, that love will still be there when you're not. So the love inside, you'll take it with you, but you'll also leave it behind. One of the great joys, really, Dale, for all of us is to be conduits for that love. And you are a living, walking conduit and have always been that in my experience. So yes, it's hard to go. It's hard to be part of that. And I know how much it's affected you and the rest of the family, but go there and be the love. And you can cry, you can be unhappy, you can do everything, but you're the love that they need. And the love that you express to everybody there, you will start to feel is also totally inside you. And you will be comforted by it as much as they are. So even though we are conduits, we are also receptors. And the receptor of a love that is moving through us is the great gift of serving God or the universe or whatever you want to call the guys upstairs. We are the conduit for that. And it's kind of our obligation, really, in the end, as people who have woken up a little bit to serve. And you're a great, great servant. I know you are, because I know you well. So I wish you well with this, and I know the pain of it, and I know how difficult it is, but I know the gift that you'll bring to the table today. And I'm thanking you for it already. Have a good party.
Thank you, Bruce.
Sure. Anybody else? George.
Just want to make a comment when you're talking about Rudi and the work. And he always spoke about the work, but I think he spoke about it because we have to learn how to do the work for ourselves, not just for the teacher. He always said he wasn't going to be around forever, and he surely wasn't. But it's really self-realization, have to do it for yourself. And I think that's an important lesson.
It is, although I will expand the S in the self to a capital S. So do the work for the self, which is yourself, and then the self, which we all share. It's a great self, and there really is a singularity into that totality. And so when you do it for yourself personally, you become capable of doing it for everyone around you. And
No question, but
yeah,
you basically, people always want somebody to tell them where to go and what to do.
right.
And we have to realize we have to find that inside.
Yes, I agree. And the magical thing, the miracle, is that it is inside. The love inside. He didn't say the love outside, you take it with you. Patrick, he said the love inside. How do you get to that? Somebody has to get to that. You know what he had to do? He had to die. He had to see how much he loved the woman he had been with and never said, I loved you to. He had to fight for her well-being. He had to destroy evil in the world, and out through all of that effort, and he came to understand the love inside. You get to take it with you. It's a journey. It's not just given. And if it is just given, say thank you. But if it's not just given, the work will get it to you. Dig in, ask inside for help, and see what happens. And of course, George, because I know you over the years, you've gone there and you've done the work. 80 years of you've been doing it. And it shows. It shows with you. It shows when you're with Cheryl. There's this incredible ability to be the thing you've been studying all these years. It's really exquisite. And that's what's wanted for all of us. And if you are careful, if you're conscious about it, if you maintain the effort in this, there are results. And if you're casual about it, and it's a once in a week thing, and you remember, I'll maybe do it tomorrow, nothing comes of that. If I wrote movies like that, you think anything would have ever gotten onto the page, let alone onto the screen? Day by day, line by line, page by page, you do the work. I could not type the end of my book if I hadn't sat and written the book every day. You can't become a conduit for love and joy and beauty in the world if you haven't done the work on yourself to get to the point where that actually flows through. So yes, I totally buy what you're saying. And I think it was what Rudi was teaching from the beginning. And it's what we all have as a capacity if we realize it. So, anybody else? Okay. Love you guys. Next week is California. And then I'll be back into in-person and Zoom here in New York the week after that. And I look forward to seeing any of you who are able to show up.